Ah, the lobster, a quintessential symbol of luxury. We associate it with celebratory dinners, exclusive restaurants, and a hefty price tag. This succulent seafood, with its rich flavor and impressive presentation, is unequivocally a delicacy. But what if I told you that this luxurious meal, once a symbol of wealth, had a surprisingly humble, even shameful past? In fact, for centuries, particularly in early America, lobsters were considered such undesirable fare that they were routinely served to prisoners, indentured servants, and the absolute poorest members of society. On-screen text: lobster, from prison food to pricey delicacy. How did a lowly, abundant bottom feeder, once viewed with disdain, transform into the gourmet staple we covet today? Get ready, because the lobster's glow-up is one of history's most astounding culinary makeovers. To understand the lobster's dramatic fall and rise, we need to go back to the early days of American colonization. The waters off the New England coast, teeming with marine life, were an all-you-can-eat buffet of crustaceans. Lobsters were so incredibly abundant that they weren't just common, they were a nuisance. Picture this. Historical accounts describe lobsters washing ashore in 2-foot-high piles, sometimes even hindering navigation for small boats near the coast. Colonists often complained about having to literally shovel them out of the way. This wasn't a rare occurrence. It was the norm. Given their overwhelming numbers, lobsters were primarily used as fertilizer for crops, as bait for fishing, or simply as food for those who had no other options. They were the ultimate poor man's protein, a cheap, readily available source of sustenance that no one truly wanted to eat. If you were serving lobster, it meant you were struggling. The sheer abundance, and consequently, the low status of lobster, led to some truly surprising regulations. In some parts of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, for instance, indentured servants, who were often forced to eat lobster multiple times a day, actually negotiated clauses in their contracts limiting how often they could be fed the crustacean. Imagine refusing lobster today. It wasn't just servants. Prisons, too, were notorious for serving lobster almost exclusively. It was cheap, easy to get, and filled stomachs. The general sentiment was that if you were forced to eat lobster, you must be in a truly desperate situation, or perhaps paying for your crimes. It was a sign of degradation, not celebration. So, how did this scorned seabed scavenger climb to the pinnacle of haute cuisine? The transformation began in the mid-19th century, driven by a trifecta of technological advancements and clever marketing. First, canning technology allowed lobsters to be processed and shipped inland, far from the coastal areas where they were a nuisance. Suddenly, people in states like Ohio or Iowa, who had never seen a live lobster, were introduced to it as a shelf-stable, somewhat exotic food. Without the context of its coastal overabundance, it began to be perceived differently. Next, improved transportation, particularly the expansion of railroads and eventually refrigerated rail cars, meant that live lobsters could be delivered fresh to inland cities. This was a game changer. Fresh lobster was a novelty, and its perceived scarcity, combined with the difficulty of transporting it alive, naturally elevated its status. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, came the clever marketing. As inland demand grew, particularly in booming urban centers, chefs and tastemakers began to experiment. They elevated its preparation, moving beyond simple boiling to create sophisticated dishes. Advertisers started portraying lobster not as a cheap protein for the poor, but as a rare, sophisticated delicacy, something to be savored for special occasions. It became associated with fine dining, wealth, and status. The narrative flipped completely. By the mid-20th century, the transformation was complete. The once despised cockroach of the sea was now a celebrated culinary icon, its price reflecting its newfound desirability. and the logistical efforts to bring it to discerning diners. From the unwanted bounty of the sea to a celebrated culinary icon gracing the most exclusive tables, the lobster's journey is a truly astonishing testament to changing tastes, technological innovation, and clever branding, the ultimate glow-up. It's a reminder that perception is everything, and what's considered trash today could be treasure tomorrow. So, what other lowly foods have undergone a similar glow-up in history, transforming from forgotten fare to celebrated delicacies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And speaking of bizarre historical transformations, next time we uncover an utterly baffling and tragic event where hundreds of people in Europe quite literally danced themselves to death. You won't believe the strange story behind the dancing plague of 1518. Like, share, subscribe for more hidden, surprising history.